There is a game being played all around you. It has no rule book, no referee, and no announcement that it has begun. Most people live their entire lives as pieces on this board, moved by hands they never see, shaped by forces they never name. They believe they are free. They believe their choices are their own. They believe the world responds to effort, to honesty, to good intentions. And that belief is exactly what makes them so easy to influence. Today, I want to talk about dark psychology, not as a weapon, not as a manual for manipulation, but as a mirror held up to the mechanics of human behavior, so that you can see clearly what most people refuse to look at. Because here is the uncomfortable truth. Understanding how control works is the only real defense against it. Let us begin with silence. Most people fear silence. They fill it compulsively. A pause in conversation makes them nervous, so they speak. A moment of uncertainty makes them anxious, so they explain. A confrontation makes them uncomfortable, so they justify, clarify, apologize, and shrink. And in every one of those moments, they hand over power without realizing it. The person who can sit in silence and be perfectly comfortable is the most threatening presence in any room. Silence is not emptiness. Silence is pressure. It is a vacuum that pulls confessions, concessions, and revelations out of people who simply cannot stand the absence of words. The interrogator knows this. The negotiator knows this. The therapist knows this. And so does every person who has ever looked at you without reacting and made you feel like you needed to explain yourself. When you say nothing, you reveal nothing. When you reveal nothing, people project. They fill the blank canvas of you with their own fears, their own assumptions, their own desires. And suddenly, you have become whatever they needed you to be without saying a single word. This is not deception. This is the extraordinary power of restraint. Now let us talk about expression, about what you show and what you choose to withhold. The face is a map. Every micro-expression, every involuntary twitch of the mouth, every flicker behind the eyes is broadcasting information. People read you constantly, even when they do not know they are doing it. They calibrate their behavior toward you based on what they perceive. If they see nervousness, they press harder. If they see certainty, they retreat. If they see eagerness, they withhold. If they see indifference, they pursue. The emotional display you offer to the world is not just communication. It is strategy, or it should be. Dark psychology understands that emotions, when worn openly and unguarded, are liabilities. This is not a call to become cold or unfeeling. It is a call to become deliberate. The most powerful people in history, the ones who moved nations and moved markets and moved minds, were not the ones who wore their hearts most openly. They were the ones who had mastered the architecture of expression. They smiled when smiling served them. They showed anger when anger would advance their position. They performed vulnerability when vulnerability would build trust. Not because they were hollow, but because they understood that how you show up in any moment shapes what that moment becomes. Show nothing that you have not chosen to show. This does not mean living behind a mask forever. It means understanding that the emotional climate of every interaction is something you can influence. When you enter a room calm, you force the room to come to you. When you respond to chaos with stillness, you become the anchor everyone else grabs onto. And when you are the anchor, you are the one who determines direction. Now we arrive at control itself, the concept people most resist naming and most desperately seek. Every human interaction involves influence. There is no neutral. When two people are in a room together, they are shaping each other's emotional states, decision processes, and perceptions. The only question is whether that influence is conscious or unconscious, deliberate or accidental. The person who refuses to engage with the idea of control does not therefore live without it. They simply relinquish it to whoever is paying attention. Dark psychology is the study of the mechanisms beneath conscious awareness that drive human decision-making. It is the territory of cognitive bias, emotional need, social conditioning, and psychological vulnerability. It is the landscape of want and fear, of status and shame, of belonging and exclusion. And the people who understand this territory can navigate it and navigate others through it with a precision that looks, from the outside, like charisma, luck, or authority. Consider reciprocity. When someone does something for you, you feel compelled to return the favor. This is hardwired. It is ancient. And it is exploitable. The person who gives you something small creates in you a disproportionate sense of obligation. Salespeople use it. Politicians use it. Cult leaders use it. The gift is never just a gift. It is the first move in a sequence. Consider scarcity. When something is rare, it becomes desirable, not because its quality has changed, but because its perceived availability has. Urgency is manufactured. Deadlines are invented. Artificial limits are placed on things that are not actually limited. And people, responding to the ancient fear of missing out, make decisions they would never make under calm conditions. Consider social proof. When people are uncertain, they look at what others are doing and treat it as evidence of what they should do. Popularity becomes a proxy for quality. Consensus becomes a substitute for judgment. And the person who can create the appearance of social proof can redirect entire groups without ever giving a direct command. These are not exotic tricks. They are the operating system of human society, running quietly beneath every interaction, every advertisement, every political speech, every relationship dynamic. Most people interact with these forces the way fish interact with water, completely immersed, completely unaware. Awareness is the beginning of everything. When you understand that silence is power, you stop filling it compulsively. When you understand that your emotional display is a signal that shapes outcomes, you stop broadcasting your vulnerabilities to everyone who might use them. When you understand that influence is constant and control is always flowing somewhere, you stop asking whether you should engage with it and start asking how you can engage with it wisely. There is a version of this knowledge that becomes predatory. That is the version that treats human psychology as a target rather than a landscape, that optimizes for extraction rather than understanding. That version is real, and it is operating all around you, and naming it clearly is the first protection against it. But there is another version, the version that teaches you to hold your position under pressure, to communicate with precision rather than compulsion, to see the dynamics of a room without being controlled by them, to understand what people actually need beneath what they say they want, and to respond to that deeper truth with integrity. That version is not manipulation, it is mastery. The most dangerous person in any environment is not the loudest. It is not the most aggressive. It is the one who understands what is happening beneath the surface while everyone else is reacting to what is visible. It is the one who says less than is necessary, shows only what is chosen, and moves through the world with the quiet confidence of someone who knows exactly how the machinery works. Say nothing. Show nothing. Control everything. Not because you are trying to dominate others, but because you have finally stopped letting others dominate you without your knowledge or consent. Because you have taken back the authorship of your own presence. Because you understand that in a world running on dark psychology, whether it admits it or not, the person who refuses to learn these dynamics does not escape them. They simply become their subject. See clearly. Move deliberately. Let your silence speak and your stillness command. The game is already underway. The only choice you have is whether to play it consciously.